The Ravens just made the perfect signing, and no, it wasn't a free agent, it wasn't a trade, it was us taking care of one of our own. The Ravens have officially signed Zay Flowers to a 4-year, $140 million extension, making him the highest paid receiver in franchise history and keeping him paired up with Lamar Jackson until the 2031 season. But while this was easily the biggest headline coming out of the Baltimore Ravens camp today, that wasn't the only story that came out of Owings Mills, as day 6 of training camp kicked in and Jacobe Lane continued to impress and made a very impeccable one-handed grab. The Baltimore Ravens defense continued to show and force several turnovers. Nate Wiggins had a bit of an injury scare towards the back half of practice after a good interception, and David Olajiga came away with one of the most rare interceptions you'll ever see, while Elijah Surratt in the receiver group continued to build within his depth chart spot. There was a lot to unpack on day 6 of the Baltimore Ravens training camp, so let's get into everything that happened. But before we get into today's video, you guys are going to want to make sure to subscribe to Ravens Digest. 70% of you guys aren't subscribed. It is completely free, no cost, no price at all, and we're providing daily Ravens videos, updates, rumors, and all things Baltimore Ravens. You guys are not going to want to miss out on the content we are providing at all. But when we talk about the biggest signing of the day within Zay Flowers was finally taken care of, and the Ravens have locked up their wide receiver number 1. Zay Flowers has officially signed a $140 million 4-year contract extension, and it is a deal that many people believed would happen due to EDC saying that he wanted to keep him in Baltimore for a long term. And now it is officially official. This contract rewards a player who has quickly become one of the most important pieces for the Baltimore Ravens over the past couple of years, and the extension was $108 million guaranteed with $140 million as a total extension. And both of these numbers are franchise records for the Baltimore Ravens for Baltimore Ravens wide receivers, as the Baltimore Ravens have never paid a wide receiver this type of money ever. He has become the highest paid player in the Baltimore Ravens history on a wide receiver perspective, and his new average of $35 million a year is 4th in the league, tied with Zay Flowers and Justin Jefferson, with Zay Flowers tying Justin Jefferson as the 4th highest paid receiver on the NFL. And the only receivers that are ahead of Zay Flowers are Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jamar Chase, and Drake London, who are making more money on a yearly basis. But this deal also makes Zay Flowers the number 2 highest paid player on the entire Baltimore Ravens roster, behind only our MVP, Lamar Jackson. And as we know, the Baltimore Ravens weren't just paying a talented wide receiver. Zay Flowers has quickly became and shot up the ranks of one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And in 2023, since being drafted out of the 1st round, he has continued to impress Baltimore Ravens fans. He became a Pro Bowler in Ravens history for the first time from a receiver in 2024, then had one of the best seasons last season in 2025. And if we take a look back at Zay Flowers' stats from the 2025 campaign of last season, Zay Flowers was a very productive piece for the Baltimore Ravens, as he had over 11 receiving yards in terms of a receiving yard deep level threat, and his receptions and his targets were also some of the highest products and productive seasons that Lamar Jackson has thrown Zay Flowers in his entire career. Zay Flowers is a big receiver when it comes to being known for his separation and his route technique ability. And Zay Flowers is a player that the Baltimore Ravens have been very impressed from, and I believe that this extension is something that Zay Flowers has deserved over the course of the past couple of years. But the Baltimore Ravens aren't the only people excited. There are people within the organization that are very excited to see Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers' connection over the course of the next 5 to 6 years. But Zay Flowers as a whole has been getting praise from the newest head coach of Jesse Minter, and Jesse Minter calls the day of the extension a great day for Ravens fans. And after practice, Minter talked about how rewarding it is to watch players receive the contracts that they earned and that they deserve, and players who work hard, players who lead for the Baltimore Ravens, and players who bring in the right mentality every single day. These are the exact players that EDC and Jesse Minter want to reward in terms of contract and in terms of high-level pay. And Jesse Minter says that it is nothing better as a coach than watching these players get what they deserve. And in terms of general manager EDC also put out a statement himself saying that Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers is a combination that we are looking forward to see over the course of the next couple of years. And Zay Flowers is a very tough, competitive, and premier talent and a foundational football player that the Baltimore Ravens need to have in their wide receiver room. And these words really stand out, meaning that Zay Flowers and the Baltimore Ravens view Zay Flowers as a player who the Baltimore Ravens can build around for years to come. But the praise didn't just stop there. Even on the defensive side of the ball, Nate Wiggins was talking about the extension and said Zay Flowers is one of the most difficult players to defend on the Baltimore Ravens roster. And Zay Flowers, he said, has elite speed, elite quickness, and the ability to get in and out of his breaks severely quick. And he also said that Zay Flowers plays really big for his size. Zay Flowers has been considered a very short receiver over the time of his NFL career, but this is probably one of the biggest compliments he could have from another player, especially Zay Flowers. And another member of the defense that had a high level of praise for Zay Flowers is newest signing out of the New England Patriots, Jaylon Hawkins. And he called him a playmaker. He talked about his yards after the catch, his change of direction, and his hands ability. And of course, nothing about this should surprise Ravens fans. As we know, earlier in the season, Zay Flowers was talked about for a contract extension, and no bigger player for the Baltimore Ravens is excited to see this change than Lamar Jackson, the Ravens quarterback, as he talked about Zay Flowers' contract situation, and he said Zay Flowers' value is out of this world, and the Baltimore Ravens agreed with this as a whole. But ironically, as Zay Flowers was celebrating his new contract with the Baltimore Ravens, he actually wasn't on the practice field today. He was not practicing, was not in pads. But another young receiver for the Baltimore Ravens has continued to make headlines, and that is rookie Jacobe Lane out of USC. I am so excited every time I talk about Jacobe Lane due to him always making plays consistently on a everyday basis. During one-on-one drills, he had a very, very impressive high-level one-handed catch, and it is one of the best catches I've seen personally through the offseason. With this, Jacobe Lane is a target in the wide receiver 3 room that the Baltimore Ravens are very excited to get after and use. And the Baltimore Ravens know that his size and his catch radius and the way that he can win vertically on routes are traits that the Baltimore Ravens did not have last season and something that the Baltimore Ravens need if they want to compete for a Super Bowl. But Jacobe Lane is a Baltimore Ravens receiver that Jesse Minter is very excited for, and he has said that Lamar Jackson is building trust within Jacobe Lane every single day. And this is one of the hardest things for any rookie wide receiver to hear, but quarterbacks who trust their receivers consistently always end up in the depth chart and end up where they're supposed to be. And Jacobe Lane continues every single training camp, every single video I make talking about him. Jacobe Lane continues to check these boxes, and every single practice he gains a little bit more confidence that he had a day before. But as we talk about the Baltimore Ravens offense, we know that in day 5, the defense had a very, very high level day, and the defense continued to have a very productive day all around, with Nate Wiggins intercepting Lamar Jackson on a leaping play, but it came with a very scary moment. He came down on the interception and collided with Jaylon Hawkins, the safety, and the second-year cornerback stayed down for a little bit of time before getting back up on his own power. And trainers had to check up on him, and he was standing afterward, but the Ravens did not immediately look or provide additional information regarding Nate Wiggins and his condition. But for the Baltimore Ravens, Nate Wiggins' health is something that is worth monitoring, and we are hoping that he will be okay based on the events that happened today. And the former first-round pick out of Clemson always shows his ability to make football plays, so anytime a player of this caliber goes down, it is a very scary sight, and everyone pays attention to it as a whole. But this wasn't the only unique defensive play that was made in training camp today. One of the rarest plays that I've seen overall, David Olajiga made an impressive play from a defensive lineman perspective as he dropped into coverage and somehow ended up making an interception in front of Lamar Jackson's pass that was intended for Justice Hill. And this is not your normal defensive lineman interception. It was a very huge play, and Jesse Minter wants this from his defense. This is the exact mindset that he is looking for. Even a defensive lineman giving that stretch and that ability to make that deep down level play and get an interception. And whether it's him disguising off the defensive line, this is something that makes the Baltimore Ravens offense question the ability of the defensive line. And these mistakes are what make defenses changing the picture in terms of a football perspective. But while Olajiga made one of the most unique plays in practice, several defensive backs for the Baltimore Ravens, as we know within that deep corner room, have continued to fight and make plays for the Baltimore Ravens. And one of these plays involved Marquise Robinson having one of the best practices of his camp, with him intercepting an underthrown ball from Skylar Thompson during 7-on-7s, and in that same little stretch, he also created another turnover, stripping a Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Cornelius Johnson, from behind and recovering a fumble. These players are fighting for roster spots, and these are the type of plays that make you stand out from a defensive perspective. And another player that got involved in terms of this perspective was Amani Orwani, with him stepping in front of Ty Pezza during 11-on-11s and making an interception during 11-on-11 drills. And as we talk about constantly, when you are a player fighting for a depth chart spot, this is exactly what coaches are looking to see in terms of competition, and defenders need to take advantage of every rep and every opportunity that the Baltimore Ravens are giving you. But while the Baltimore Ravens defense was creating turnovers, the younger receivers for the Baltimore Ravens continue to show why they could be the future of the group. And another receiver on that room is Elijah Surratt. And Elijah Surratt continued to have a very strong training camp and ended practice with one of the biggest offensive highlights of the day. During a one-of-one matchup against Chandler Rivers, he made a very contested catch against Chandler Rivers in tight coverage, and Rivers was right on him, playing press coverage on him. The coverage was very strong, but Elijah Surratt extended his hands and came down with the football. And these are the type of plays that younger receivers are trying to make to get those depth chart spots, as we talked about, but it is a very difficult catch, especially when there's defenders right in your face. And after this play, Jacobe Lane and LaJohntay Wester went down and started celebrating with him, dancing with him to celebrate the moment. And it shows the excitement within this young wide receiver group, something that we have not seen in the Baltimore Ravens room in a very long time. And behind Zay Flowers and Bateman, the Baltimore Ravens are looking to extend and have opportunities for these wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4 spots within the Baltimore Ravens. But as we know, the Zay Flowers extension was the biggest thing in terms of the Baltimore Ravens' future. We are continuing to build around Lamar Jackson. We have Mark Andrews, we have Bateman, we have young receivers, and with Declan Doyle now leading the offense, it is a major opportunity for Declan Doyle. But the Baltimore Ravens had a very good, big, and day 6 successful. What do you guys think the biggest story from day 6 is? Do you think it is the Zay Flowers extension? Was it the Jacobe Lane breakout camp over the past couple of days? Or was it the defense continuing to dominate? Let me know down below in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to Ravens Digest if you are a new viewer, and turn on notifications so you don't miss another Ravens update. Thanks for watching today's video, and I'll see you on the next one. And until then, Ravens flock always.